All right, hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Great Grandpa BB. This is my good friend Andrew Schaffer. He's on the show today. We're up here in Cleveland. We've had a lot of crazy conversations over the years. You know?
We have. I think few and further between the last few years, but I remember being in Norwalk.
Yeah.
I don't know what 2013. Yeah, we would meet up all the time for coffee.
Right.
Like berries and all that, and
or
it would just be very
shooting film in a graveyard or shooting fireworks at people.
Yeah.
On a railroad track, breaking guitars.
We've had some experiences. I
almost like the mythology of that video more than like. You know,
the one that could have been
the one that got away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hard drive crashes are a real thing, folks. Back up your footage. That was like a very important hard lesson to learn. You know, on that particular project. But it was at least we had a great time making that thing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, for
by
sure.
itself.
That's where one of my original love of films, came from. I guess it was like just trying something. You know, that's. I mean, I try
Throw it
stuff
to the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And people try stuff all the time in their normal life and they don't film it, and it's all that much more valuable too. Anyway,
No, I think that's great, because I think like a lot of times like we see the perception of people's lives in content,
right?
And it's like. Especially like Instagram, in that world, like you're seeing a very one-sided version of a person's life, and all of it just like, and people get the impression that their lives have to be that, or like that's the bar,
So to put in context for the audience that's listening right now, you do a lot of film. That's kind of your specialty, I would say.
Yeah. If I had one hat to wear, I guess that would be the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a critical eye for it too.
Yeah. Our own worst critics, like when it comes to the art field.
I feel that. And to go off topic briefly, at your party last Friday here, I got in a conversation downstairs, and we started talking about sports and how kind of meaningless it is at times, and how distracting it is at times. And I brought up how my dad would listen to old NASCAR races back in the 70s, like on the radio,
Okay. Yeah.
And they're like, well, how would you listen to a NASCAR race on the radio?
Yeah, already visually, like seeing that on television's one.
Yeah.
I mean, teach their own, like different strokes sort of thing. I've never really been into the four wheels in a circle concepts. But visually, I think that would be the best way to like live in that mode. So like to live only on the auditorial side. Or you're hearing it on the radio, it's just like, how...
It's surprising, like how, I mean, all sports are like that though. You know, it's just like, well, if he throws it down the field and he catches it, well, he makes it a touchdown, they're going to have points on the board.
Right.
It's like ridiculous to even say it out loud.
The sports points, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the gladiators of today.
Right.
Like, everyone has their coliseums, and they need time to fill the void.
Yeah.
So they can forget the woes of today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Like,
that's true too.
Yeah, they got to be like forgetting about their own mortality.
I'm on this team. This is my team. We're gonna score. We won.
Yeah.
Like that.
There's a lot of us and them.
Yeah.
Like sort of stuff, and it's I personally never really got into the sports arena. Like
occasionally, as a child, I did. Yeah. I collected baseball cards and like. I do like to go to sporting events, to the actual thing.
As a kid too, I did a lot of baseball.
Yeah,
growing up, like it was that was so much of my own identity. I think early on was just like little league t-ball. We got up to high school, and I wasn't like making certain cuts, and it was kind of like at that point. Like I couldn't figure it out because I was only like 16, 17 at the time, but what was like an identity crisis,
right?
In some respects, because it's like I felt like I poured all myself into that,
Yeah, I love baseball, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The '98 Indians, man, that was like
oh right, yeah.
They had such a team.
The 1990 Cincinnati Reds is where I was at, man. Like they swept the series that year. I was pretty little. I was still a pretty little kid.
Yeah.
But I knew every single name of every player on that team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Third base, Chris Sabo, like Barry Larkin at shortstop. Like. Yeah. I knew all the guys,
Yeah.
Eric Davis in center field. And
sure.
And they swept the series that year, and it was just like my favorite team, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, baseball is amazing. And then they never won a World Series again, and I kind of like, that's exactly how my interest went with it. Fair weather fan completely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. For me too, like it just it's one thing to spectate, but I think to participate and to play on the field has its own separate rewards, and really like filled most of my cup, as I found later in life, like, because it's hard for me to go back to the stadium sometimes and really find enjoyment, like it just seems more of a social, especially baseball, like a social event, you're just like talking to your buddies, you have a brew.
The last time I was at a baseball game was my cousin's bachelor party. And it was because it was a social event, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting how that works. It's like the game's background, and every once in a while we're watching it and we're yelling and whatever.
Yeah.
But,
do they still call it like America's favorite pastime these days? Because I feel like that's not even the case anymore.
I mean, like, America doesn't
basketball,
even exist
football,
anymore, right?
Yeah. What is America?
America fell into the ether, and it's in this void now of like non-existent. Like, oh yeah, that used to be a thing. That like was a thing at one time where there was a dream, and like All right, let's not go there.
Yeah, that's a deep rabbit hole. We can. I have the time. We can go down that rabbit hole.
The way that I was going with this. Okay, so we're at the party here last Friday.
Yes.
And we're talking about announcing for NASCAR and how it's like coming into the right-hand turn. He's coming in really fast. There's some oil, and he's coming in for a splash and dash. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that they say in NASCAR that I find hilarious. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, way they explain it on the radio. I was thinking though, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great though if you had like, and this would completely take away from the concert. This would only be for like the aficionados or the connoisseurs of music events, right? Mm-hmm. But if you had somebody at a concert like announcing the concert, like as it's going on the radio, I feel like that would be hilarious and really annoying at the same time, because like they're blocking out the music. Like that's the point of the concert.
I feel like there's a distraction there, but there might be that niche, that wants to tune into the other track. It's like the director's commentary,
right? Yeah. It's like
I've
seen this band a lot. I want to see somebody's take on it though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
like
I don't
a real-time review.
Yeah.
Or like
I've never seen anybody do that before.
I dig that, yeah. I'll try once. I'll try anything twice.
When I'm ever at a concert, that's what's happening, though.
Yeah.
I once watched an entire Bad Religion concert and, like, did not listen to anything because I was just talking to this guy. Or tons of concerts like that, where I've just been talking through the entire concert.
Like, of the show and the experience?
Yeah,
you guys are talking, it just kind of...
Yeah, like, oh, man,
breaking
this
it
guy's...
down?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Can't believe you're using a Stratocaster for this. This is completely like honky-tonk, twang, Telecaster, man, this is the only riff-based rock band in this entire town. Like, I can't believe every other band in this town, man. Like, they're just chords. Okay, we get it. Like,
Muller, Mumford & Sons, like...
Right, yeah. Some new grass, being real polished, being real shiny with it.
Sure.
There's like a million things to say about music,
Yeah.
And people say them all the time. I used to go to concerts and just write about bands, like, at the bar or something,
Yeah.
Just because I find it hilarious. So there's just, like... so many words to use with bands that it's just like it's impossible to describe it, so it's like completely endless.
Yeah. We're talking about this setting up, but I feel like music is much more of a magic than a science to me. Like there's those that like you, and I'm fortunate to be in certain circles where there's musicians that could tell me this is like an omnidirectional mic.
Right. Yeah.
But like, outside of that, like it's very much just like it is like within my own process and like figuring things out. Like I love doing music videos for that reason too.
Right. Yeah.
It's because it's just like it's not a place where I can get too analytical. It's something more that I can just feel. And like figuring out and building visuals around that. Like with you know, like a lot of like Keener's work and stuff like that. Like Emily Keener's a musician for the audience.
She's local, but
context.
She's big. She's somewhat regional.
Yeah. Pretty big. She's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
She went places. But yeah, I just feel like when it comes to brainstorming, like visually, the ideas come a lot more smoother and fluid when I'm like, I need like a collaborator. So like I'm listening to like a musician, or like having that external force kind of come in, and it kind of informs then like the feel and the lighting and all of that. Like I build it in my head, see it so perfectly in my head.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, of course, trying to replicate and like getting that down with physics and you know the elements that we have in our control to get that as accurate as possible.
And it works both ways though too.
Yeah.
Like as far as like coming back, I'm just in this space right now, right? So I'm like remembering like a week ago. But you guys were talking about videos, music videos, and like showing videos on the screen and talking about like you know like the technical aspects of them in a way. And like I just finished this album. I'm still in the mixing process somewhat. But I started thinking about it in like this trip to Denver, and I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot like a long form video for the entire album, just on the train and in Chicago and in Denver, and just like mouth the lyrics, just put the video camera up every once in a while, you know, like why not, you know, like, but that's where the idea came from. Is just like listening to you guys talk about it, or even just like that Radiohead video, you're like, oh, this is all one long shot. You know? Or two long shots that they splice together day and night. I'm like, that's genius. You know?
Different ways of just stretching the medium. Has always been like a igniter, you know? And so for the viewer, like we had a party last week because I'm heading to Tampa in 2 weeks. So we had this whole little like going away party, and it was like a culmination of the best people in life that I know. And I was like, dang, like we made the right choices, you know, like in terms of friendship and like relationships go, like and the connectors, like it's just you know, just different. It seemed like one of those I described it oftentimes at night of being like the Scooby-Doo meets like Batman and Robin crossovers, you know, like just a lot of Venn diagrams, intersections, and for everyone to get together so like harmoniously. And it was just like really, really cool to see. I was like, damn, we should have done this sooner. you know, sort of thing, but I'm glad it happened all the same. But to that point, at the very tail end, it was like 1, 2 in the morning. And we're just like running through like old music videos. There was a lot of like Spike Jonze, who was like popular with the Beastie Boys, and Fatboy Slim and all that. And then you started playing some of your tracks, and it was just like really cool, like from the universe's standpoint and timing, because like the crescendos and the way like the instrumentals went, it was just like so fluid and matched up. It looked like it was almost seamlessly edited together.
The videos on the screen and my songs playing in the background. It was pretty wild how some of them would just like the guy on the screen would be like yelling, and they were music videos in themselves. So it kind of lent itself
without the audio on. So it was your music informing the visual. And vice versa.
It's like playing The Wizard of Oz to Dark Side of the Moon.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wait a minute. There's synchronicities here. I think.
It's really cool to see like two very independent ideas and concepts and things. Like just, you know,
let's mash them up
in the timing.
What happens when we do this? You know, it's like experiments, really.
And that's a lot of good art and a good comedy and just any good content. It's like the culmination of two unseemly ideas, basically, and just kind of seeing how they come out of this experiment. You know, it's
for sure.
Rock and roll is built that way. Like a lot of genres of music is just like a lot of,
and it's completely not planned. You know, and like that's where I think a lot of magic of it comes from. Is like this whole like kind of helter skelter, fly by night, like. You know, like, let's just put these things together and shake them up a little bit, you know, and if there's a mistake in there, let's accent it, you know. Like, the mistake isn't a mistake. It's like, it's part of the thing. It becomes part of the focal point at that point, too. So how do you want to play it, you know? Like, I was mixing a song last night, and there's a part where the transition isn't so great.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but instead of going back and redoing the music,
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, I'm just going to accent it with the lyrics and be like, oh, I was stumbling right there, is what I say in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Just to accent it more, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so, is it then a mistake, or is it then character, you know?
Right. Happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say.
Right, yeah. Happy tree over here,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it's, I think that's what originality is. Like, I remember, like, I'll never forget, like, a few years ago, we had one of these Ohio winters, and it was, you know, the beginning of the winter season, and we're, like, driving through 250 for those within the Norwalk region.
Right, yeah.
Shout out to 250. But
we're in Ohio. Hey,
But I remember my buddies being like, you know, nothing's original. Like, there is nothing that hasn't been done before. That whole, you know, conversation.
And that's...
it's interesting to me because, like, as he was saying that, I was looking on the windshield as, like, snowflakes were falling. And every snowflake is different. You know? Like, even every snowflake that hits the windshield is different from the snowflake that hit it 5 seconds before that. So it's just like, it's not a matter, I think, of one concept or idea. It's like the DNA of, like, taking... you know, one concept and then mashing it with another.
Exactly.
And intertwining that and making like a Frankenstein project, you know. That's where...
like, nothing is original, but everything's original. You know, nothing is everything in that sense.
We're all stealing from one another and, like, you know, however nice ways you want to put stealing, you know, it's influence, it's an homage, like, it's...
What is humanity isn't that complicated, you know? Like,
I mean... It depends. It depends on how. If you want to go wide lens, then sure.
That's true.
But, like,
that's
if you want to
true.
go microscopic, like, we can look into the biology of this leaf and, like, you know, like,
we're all doing essentially the same things. And so in that way, nothing's original at all. But but like, you know, I'm listening to this comedian on the way here, and he's just accenting his weakness in his clarinet playing. And I'm like, this is hilarious. You know? Because that's how he's spinning it. And that's the character that he's portraying, kind of, you know? But it's just very... I mean, when you look at it that way, it's completely a notion of just possibilities and just things that we don't even know that we don't know yet, too. You know? Like, I don't know. Like, we think of things as solid... And then, like, we get in closer, and it's like, well, really, the atoms are kind of like star events. Like, if you look up in the sky, that's kind of how the matter is, you know, that we're looking
just very tight-knit constellations. In a way,
But if you're looking at it really close, they look like they're very far away from each other, too. You know? Like, so it's all a matter of perspective.
Totally. You're talking about character a little bit, and, like, characters and, like... putting on personas and all that. And before we're setting up too, we're talking about how, like your mom looks at, you know, Great Grandpa BB this way. I see Great Grandpa BB in this light, and it, you know, everyone has their own individualized experience and perception. Of one another. Like, exactly. And I think that's just, like, that's so cool, you know, to think about. Like how...
because we're completely different people in other people's eyes, depending on time, place, scenario.
It could take one event to be, like, the hero or the villain, you know? Like...
I showed up, I was sick that day, man. I was not 100%. Or whatever it was, you know, or like, I was mad drunk, and like, that's when I met you. I don't even remember that happening. Or I woke up in a field that day, you know?
There's so many variables and butterfly effects to build up the culmination of...
I was on stage playing that guitar solo. Everything was in slow motion that day, man. Like, I had 5 more minutes on that guitar solo, but it was only 5 seconds in real life. I was in a fishbowl. It was a disco ball, and I don't know.
Do you? So with all that said, like, do you feel as though like you put on different personas and masks depending on the environment and the person?
I mean, sometimes on purpose, sometimes accidentally. For sure. I mean, recording this album, I do it definitely like, and even like showing you guys some of the mixes the other day. Like Laura Jean was like. It's like, wow, is this your voice? And I'm like, yeah. Like, and she's like, what? But it's not gruff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait till the breakdown.
Right. Give it a minute.
Yeah.
We'll get to Tom Waits land soon.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just like that's where I'm accenting it.
Yeah.
But and then like I'm re-recording some of the lyrics last night, and I'm like, well, okay, so the in this song, the choruses are all very like straightforward and very like. But then, like, so I'm like, so maybe I'm going to play these guys as completely gruff. But then I have this, like, other voice I've been using a lot on this particular album where, like, in my mind, it's very, like, 60s, like, car salesman or something like that. And, like, what was the one line? It's just like, what if I'm a self-made psychedelic god? Or so, like, that kind of, like, flow of, like, speech where, like, I'm a TV host or something, like, and just
I think it's great to like flex our like existential muscles and like the people and how we can take different forms, like at different times. I think that's really cool. I've experienced and you hear that from like a lot of long-term relationships, especially where it's like, man, you've changed, like you're just like. You're not like
we're going to continue to change.
This box I had for you, you're no longer fitting that container in the way that I saw fit,
Yeah.
And sometimes there can be some resistors to that a little bit, depending on.
Because we become accustomed to people as they are, and we also allow people to be certain ways, too.
Yeah.
And sometimes if that person stops allowing, that person changes, and then they stop allowing the other person, that behavior, that becomes a clash then. You know? It's like, well, I always get drunk on Saturdays or whatever.
Sure.
And it's like, well, I don't drink anymore, so I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, well, this is a whole different kind of a relationship now. You know?
It really gives you like a wider understanding then of like, well, what was this relation? If it, like in your example, like if it was just the drinking parts that really put together and like
I just say that because I've seen that happen.
How deep or shallow was this? To begin with. But,
exactly. Or our entire relationship was predicated on talking nonstop on the phone for hours. But realistically, how long can you keep that up before I have to go? I have to go back to work, man. Like like this is. This has been great, but I need to do, like, my entire month has been completely here with, like, trying to entertain you. You know?
Yeah.
And that was fun. That was great. But, like, I need to, like, be my own person now.
Yeah. It's got to be that yin and yang give and take, too. Like,
there's a complete balance.
A little heavy on one side for too long, you start to question. Like,
and you start running out of material. Like, to be honest. Like, I stopped having things to talk about for a minute. You know? It's like we talked for 5 hours yesterday, girl. Like I don't know what else to say.
Not a whole lot's happened from yesterday. Like that could fill a 5-hour slot.
But somehow I do because like I have stories and things. You know, that I like to tell.
I'm sure you especially.
I've
spin it.
I lived a very asymmetrical or a very nonconformist life in a way, right? Like. And somehow I'm continuing to do that. At times I'm like, okay, I need to conform. I need to really pull back. But then I'm just like, you know what? Let's not. Let's just like let's just keep going and see how far this thing can go, you know?
Yeah. Well, one thing I really appreciate about your like great grandpa BB, as a person, and we've known each other for I think 2011 in Sandusky.
Okay,
Megan Meadows.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
She was our like landlady / roommate at the time, and that was like my introduction.
Oh, wow.
But But all that said, like I feel like you give us like everyone else permission to not just live that conformist lifestyle.
Right.
You're like living that, and like by action and example, you're like informing us. Like, well, it isn't always. Like for myself, I work the corporate 9 to 5 and stuff like that, and it has its pros and cons, and I'm really grateful to be where I am.
For sure.
And all that said, but like at the same time, it's nice to see those that are not willing to find compromise. In a lot of ways, like artistically, stylistically, like.
And that rubs people the wrong way, and
I'm sure
in my life, in relationships, and it's like. But I have to find it makes me go inside, you know, because I can find solace there, and I've cultivated that over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then you find something else completely new or somebody else completely new, and then you're like, I'm saved, you know? Yeah. But then you really aren't. I mean, everybody is essentially themselves all the time.
Yeah. There's too many, I think, external components going on outside of us to fully be, like, quote-unquote saved, you know?
Right.
Like, we're all still, like, figuring day-to-days out, and there's different challenges, even if you lock yourself in a room that come to, you know, that you have to kind of
unless you're able to, like, completely live a lifestyle where you're like, well, all externalities will never help me find what I'm looking for. And you know that, and then you just stop searching or looking.
The kind of like Buddhist monk inner peace.
Yeah, you just completely go inside.
Yeah.
Like, and that's you can do that, you know?
Yeah.
But there's a choice, you know?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, is it, like, to me, there's a time limit, and there's like, okay, I've been here too long, I want change. And then I make that conscious change, or I make that conscious move forward, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even, like, my own choice sometimes, you know? It's just something that, like, catches my eye. I'm, like, walking around, you know, my place, and I'm like, I need art in here. Yeah. You know, I need to find some artists that will sell me something, you know?
Yeah.
And then so I start looking for them, and then that led me on this crazy road, you know, and I just let it take me, you know? It's like, okay, well, I'm here now. Great, you know?
Yeah. The word support, you know, has been, like, kind of in the forefront of my brain lately because for the viewer, like, I'm doing this move in a week from yesterday. So next Wednesday I'll be leaving for Tampa on this like new chapter. And
that wakes you up.
It does, and I need a little like brain jostling, you know, for a couple of years, you know, and we'll just see where it goes from there. But just not at that point to be fully rooted in comfort, you know. Yeah. Maybe a couple more steps. I think we'll be there.
Yeah.
But all that said, like I got like just a year-old niece and some change, you know, some months and stuff like that, and
same here.
Family,
actually,
family really puts it in perspective.
Oh yeah,
and like her, you know, development, and you only get one round of that, you know. And like
it's
wild. The talking, dada, like doing the walks, you know, that sort of thing. So it like learning, like for Andrew Schaffer, you know, like what support means. You know, and like trying to take care of family. I'm glad we live in 2021 where we have FaceTime and we can have that like immediate facial visual, you know? I mean, there, of course, it can never build up to the real deal.
Right.
But I am glad that we have that. And to like build, to make her, you know, people feel loved and supported, I think, is the mode that I've kind of found myself drifting towards too, like with work and stuff. Like I have all these new hires that I'm training up with like not enough time that I know that they can do the job properly. Like there's going to be a lot of like them almost drowning, figure things out on their own sort of thing. But I love building up processes and building support so people can live in at least more comfort, you know, than they previously did. Like,
I mean,
life's hard, you know? Like,
there's never going to be, maybe there's just never going to be complete comfort, you know?
I don't know if there ever should be.
No.
Or is.
No.
Yeah. And like, you know, and then there were like just different lifestyles lived, you know, in the 50s with like the housewife. There was like the housewife and the breadwinner of that time.
And that whole mentality was comfortable. But
they're like medicated, like they're losing their damn minds because you're just trapping individuals in this box.
Yeah. And maybe it worked out for
some
part of the community.
Different strokes again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
and I'm sure that it did. I'm sure some people just fit right in there like pegs in a round hole, you know, and it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And like that's amazing, but everybody else, like the 80% of people who it didn't work out for.
Right. That structure is very much built for just a certain type of individual and human. So it's like very like
you have to put on a mask.
You're only on that track for a time.
And for how long has humanity just done that to itself, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, over how many different years, you know? And, I mean, there's always, like, outlets, though, you know? Yeah. There's always, like, release valves for that type of thing.
Sure.
There's, like, a Jester. Oh, you're a Jester. Okay. You
sports.
know? Yeah, sports.
If we're going full circle on the sports thing, like sports are a good thing too.
I'm going to get drunk and tell you that I can do this better than you. I'll lift more of these boulders than you right now, or whatever. I'll throw this thing farther.
Yeah.
And then you get like a whole group of people.
Measuring of the masculine.
Yeah,
alphas,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean, there's that side to it. There's so many sides and so many just different like, I mean, music, drink, anything that like. Games, anything where like people like can be together and like, you know, sing together or whatever the thing is that's together. That's a very like Confucius thought, really. Yeah. Like where like Confucianism doesn't have like a god, where they only have like their highest form of form is called Ren, and it's just relationships between people, where it's just like people are doing shit together, you know.
Yeah. And together, not like in opposition.
Right.
More so, or
and it could be in opposition, but I would say that would be like in opposition and just like for the fun of it, you know. Okay. Not an actual like war.
Yeah. Sure.
Like that I would assume would be the opposite of the highest form.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very not on brand for Confucius. Okay. Yeah. I've been like trying to just steer our mindset, because I feel like our own like. Globally, like and I can't say I guess globally, because like there are like certain privileges of living in America versus some other third world countries. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, but I feel like within I guess I'll say as far as like the U.S. is concerned, and we still have a lot of things to work through here as well. Oh yeah, definitely. It's no cakewalk, but I just feel like the win and lose, you know, winners and losers mentality, right? Like in that scarcity mindset, like there's less of that. Like we're getting towards a societal structure where it doesn't necessarily have to be so Darwin, I guess, and more like abundance, like where we can kind of live and share, you know, with what our resources that we have, which I feel like, again, that's a blanket statement, but there's scarcer resources, and then there's, you know. Yeah.
Well, and it's a mindset too, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Because
the philosophy of that,
Yeah, because if you realize like how much, even if there isn't, and you're just living in the mindset of such, you're a lot calmer, and you can approach things in a calmer sense, you know? Yeah. It's like, oh shit, we only have like 40 years left of oil. Like, that's a little unnerving, you know?
The fear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But if you're like, okay, well, I mean, we have enough oil, okay, like, for right now. And, you know, let's move forward, though.
Like solar's a thing? Yeah. Right.
There are options. We have technologies we might not even know about yet that exist. Yeah. Or just different, like, maybe we're not exploiting the properties of matter itself. I mean, like, the simplest thing, it could be the simplest thing we're overlooking. You know, where like Einstein's like, well, matter is energy. It's like, oh, well, yeah, obviously, like outer space. You're talking about outer space, right? Yeah. It's like, well, no, like that's all energy. You know. Yeah. So, is it? Are we running out of energy, or are we just completely? Is everything energy?
Yeah.
You know?
Have we just not figured out a way to practically harness?
Yes.
Other resources.
And that's what
given the technological limits. Of today. Yeah.
And I think that's where my mindset is, and I think that's like, if I was to write a sci-fi novel, that's what it would be about. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I've been getting into the whole like Moneyless Society idea and like putting that in my head, and I mean, obviously, it's very, very not like conducive to like how everyone thinks right now, you know, like everyone's in that mind frame. So I mean, it's like the idea itself is good in that, like, well, how do I look at the world, and if there was no money, what would happen, right? But it's completely infeasible for that to happen in the next, you know, I don't know, 50, 100 years, right? Sure. Maybe. But I was listening to this guy the other day on this like Moneyless Society podcast, you know? Okay. And like that guy really got my attention because I started writing a short story about this like last night. And like I really like this idea of like, well, like we live in completely deregulated capitalism where a corporation can do anything they want. And we've been really pushing for that for decades. So like, why don't I start a corporation and do anything I want?
Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot of things. Okay. But it's like, what if I start an Amazon and just completely automate it with robots, just hire as many people as Amazon, but only have them work 5 hours a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then pay them a living wage
Right.
until, the robots completely take over, and then I'm just paying, thousands of people to live, and they're not working at all.
Yeah. Right.
So in that sense, that's still capitalism, and
Right.
I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Because everything's completely deregulated.
Sure.
So depending on how you look at it, we can already live in these types of societies.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how people, it's like, well, you have to be for your shareholders. Well, I don't have shareholders, right?
Right.
Maybe just my employees bought in, and that's my capital.
Employee owned.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you can come up with money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people just print money. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even connected to the government.
Yeah.
And like they collect debt on
Federal Reserve's
that
wild.
whole
Yeah.
monstrosity.
It's privatized.
Yeah. Where it's not really based on anything except for debt. Okay, well, that's a Ponzi scheme. Great.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's not gonna fail.
Yeah.
Good.
What's your take on Bezos?
I'm not a big fan of the guy.
Yeah.
Whenever I see an Amazon truck drive by, I'm like, "Fuck you, Bezos." Pretty much, that's my gut reaction.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I mean,
But I feel like our systems and like the way things operate, like people will find a way. Like the Rockefellers, and then like we had monopoly laws in place to counteract just how new venture capitalists can like take advantage of our systems. I would love to say that if I were in his position, I had like a bald head and like all of that. Like I feel like I would allocate my resources better, and like be more holistic. But at the same time, like I also like put it in like the systems and the guardrails that are set in place. Within our operations, more of like the responsibility. To keep these things from happening. Like.
Do I need
tax the rich? Like just get.
Do I need a mega yacht, or would I feel better to feed people and like to fuel a mega yacht? Right? Like, do you know how much it costs to put fuel in one of those?
No.
$400,000.
I had no idea.
It's. I was just learning this myself yesterday. Like a $1.2 million mega yacht costs $400,000 to fuel every time.
So it isn't the yacht itself that's the expense. It's
it's
the fueling cost.
Plus, you can't dock it at a rate.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was like the ultimate flex too for like the space race of like the world's elite. And like
I do like the Shatner like going to space. Like I do appreciate that. As a Trekkie. And as a Moneyless Society Trekkie.
It was a good PR move on their part, just to warm the hearts a little bit. Like we at least did this one thing.
That was one good thing that happened in that, But we could do better, guys. Okay,
well, especially given the cost of living these days, like for colleges taking financial aid and taking students for a ride. It was like that whole John Mulaney bit where he's like, I was 17, with no lawyer present, and you're gonna tell me like. Without parental guidance or whatever, I can then borrow this much money. And not really understanding the weight behind that and like what that means for my whole life, depending on how much you decide to take out on a loan. And then like just, overall wage like today and like making rent and due, like it's different from what it was in the 50s. Like it's, everyone's seen those like graphs, like cost of living. And then, like, income's kind of like...
flat lines. And it's like 1973, I think, something like that.
There's no adjustment, too. Something's got to give.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that trends across, like, party lines, too, you know?
And party line... like, both parties are the same thing in a lot of ways now, and it's just become homogenized, and, it's ridiculous in so many... The cat's kind of like taking the sheet a little bit.
It's a ghost.
He's like, hey guys, stop talking about inflammatory ideas.
Oh my gosh. That cracks me up. Hold on. I'm not playing with you.
Hey, bud.
I'm just moving this so we can see.
We're filming an important documentary here. It's like, stop it, guys.
They're against.
I'm really...
They're back like ancient Egypt times when they were like at the top of the world.
Cats are very much against politics.
Right.
Nowadays. I get it, man. I get it. Totally.
Yeah.
Completely.
It'd be great to be a cat, rent free, get fed, my shit gets cleaned by some other person. Like, it's great.
So, movies, right? Like...
Yeah. I'm going to that.
Yeah. So I watched a really bad movie yesterday, and it had all the elements, man, that it could have totally succeeded.
It's contemporary, like a recent?
2005.
Release? Okay.
So it's a little older.
Yeah.
But like William H. Macy's in it. It has Matt McConaughey. It has Rainn Wilson. It has like
star-studded for the time.
Yeah. A couple other people, Penelope Cruz and some other dude that's like the comic relief, and like I recognized him, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But it had all of the things, and it even had a good plot.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little harebrained, but it was like okay, like it's interesting. It's keeping my attention, but then like. Somehow in the editing room floor, like all of the action scenes like went way too long, and it just like when it should have stopped, it just kept going every time. Yeah. And the whole movie was like 2 hours long, and it's like, wow, everything is just no, dude, no. Like,
is this all flash and bang and like no? Mostly,
substance with the
like, story and
and even like the comic relief was like saying the same jokes over again. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like we got the joke the first time, and it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, it was already like half deflated.
Okay, well again, okay.
They must have had a lot of confidence in the writer's room.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and even a good villain. It was just...
And maybe really... for that time, too, would have had more of like a ha-ha.
Yeah, I don't know.
The comedy changes and what's funny.
Yeah, and then toward the end, it was a little sexist, but I'm like, okay, 05, I got it.
Yeah.
Like...
We've come a ways socially.
It really has, yeah. Like, you watch movies from, like, the early aughts, and it's a whole different mentality.
Oh, yeah.
It completely is.
A lot of cringe in there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Oh.
Like at the time, it seemed like it was funny, but now it's just like completely not funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wild and what a decade and some change can do.
Yeah. Well, a decade and like complete reversal of like our knowledge base,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I have complete knowledge at my disposal at any given time in my pocket, you know. What does that do?
Yeah. Well, and just it depends on how big I want to get with this, but
right.
like, we deify these celebrities and everything else. Like,
true.
I remember like Hitchcock saying like he made the analogy that like his talent and like the actors are like cattle in his eyes, you know. And I'm not going to go as far as that. There's that, and then there's like the deification.
Extremes. Yeah.
And like the tabloids and all that. I'm somewhere like in the middle, you know.
They're not nothing.
Yeah. Like they shouldn't be worshipped and they shouldn't be treated like shit. You know, like we're all humans here. Like let's find that middle ground.
Yeah, we're collaborating here.
Yeah.
You know, like this isn't like a me or you kind of a thing.
Right.
Where Hitchcock maybe could. You know, maybe Hitchcock had the like force of willpower. Yeah. Where he could just make a movie and it doesn't matter who's in it. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, he had Jim Stewart in it. You know, some Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty big at the time.
They got a lot with. Probably murder and then some,
you
know, like within that time where
for
the information, like to your point of like having the box, like people can now broadcast all their stories immediately to anyone.
That's true. I mean, that's what we're doing right now.
I think that's poisonous, buddy. So with that said, like the Weinsteins and all that, like draining of like all that corruption and all that, like they found out the hard way that behavior. You can't get away with it like you could in the early aughts or like the 90s and beyond.
And there's also different ways that you can spin movies to people who are taking gambles and taking risk on movies. You know,
Yeah.
People are throwing $50 million at this project. It's like, if it's not solid in some way, you know, like, what am I spending? Like, oh, it's like, okay, this is really edgy script. This is a completely original idea. I really like it, but there's no fan base and there's no guarantee for it. You know.
Yeah.
And so, am I going to spend all this money on it? You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And at least in a lot of people's eyes who are, you know, throw money at something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I got the Brady Bunch movie license here on the docket too, where I got this real creative idea.
Yeah.
What do I want to go with?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I know that everybody already knows what Brady Bunch is, you know?
I think it's a lot of just, you're right on. Like, it's just, they want that safe bet. And usually that comes with names.
Or, you know, that's the other side of it, though.
And
yeah. Because if I have this super edgy creative idea, but then I, like, and there's nobody there yet, but then I get, like, De Niro all of a sudden, or I get, you know, some William H. Macy, all of a sudden there's credibility there, and there's, like, a risk factor that's delayed because of the fact that the people that I'm working with, you know? Those are the two sides. I was listening to this guy the other day talking about how that always is the case unless you're working on a horror movie. And in that case, as long as you have a concept, an artistic concept, like, it doesn't matter who's in the movie, it doesn't matter if anybody's ever heard of it.
True.
It's weird how that's like the one caveat to that formula.
It often sometimes can spit out as like camp, you know, like campy, like something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I it's just like that mix between business of the industry, the creative, and the artists would be like, boo, like money,
I know,
you know, like,
I know.
And just have like green pastures, but also it's a good, I think, check and balance in some cases, depending on the powers that be, you know, and how much freedoms are given and the whole thing.
And it's hard. I mean, like, if you hit on a new idea and you don't have any commercial appeal, you know, somebody else is going to take that idea and be like, oh, I know how to spin this. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And
legally,
just completely, like, take it to the stratosphere,
right.
You know, all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, wow, that, you know, like, and it's hard to have all those pieces of the puzzle together at the same time.
Yeah. Totally.
Unless you're already there doing it, you know, and you're like, oh, well, I just did, you know, my name's Coppola, and like, or whatever.
I do what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to build that kind of reputation and trust.
Yeah, like,
throw in a few bangers, you know,
Yeah.
like Wes Anderson or something like that, you know, and like, okay, this guy's like,
Yeah.
this is very different from what we're used to, but it seems to be working here.
And he has Bill Murray on every movie, so
yeah, right. Yeah.
You have that kind of ability to just like almost just like circus wrangling, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's how it is with just
directorial power, star power.
Yeah.
Surpassed the actor, actress.
Yeah. Even just like if you have like a rookie director who's completely starry-eyed about working with these people, it's going to be impossible to even work with them anyway.
Right. If you put them on a pedestal, it's over.
Yeah. It's like completely like a relationship like that in pretty much any collaborative project you're working on too.
Yeah.
If you have a band and like you have like a guitar player who's like a god or something.
You're
like, oh, I'm working with Keith Richards on this project or something. You know, like
totally.
That it won't translate. But if you're Tom Waits and you're like, oh yeah, this is my friend Keith.
Yeah.
Then he'll be on the album and it all works out, you know?
Yeah.
And he's given him direction, you know? He's like, Keith, I don't want you to listen to any music on the way before you start recording today, you know? Because I don't want any idea in your head before you get to the studio.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what he'll tell him, you know?
Yeah.
And that's... But it's like a balance, kind of like a power dynamic almost.
Yeah.
It's super wild.
To run with that, like what we ingest in terms of materials as creative. Yeah. You know, you want to keep it lean and like healthy. You won't want any like junk food.
No.
Coming in, and sometimes that's kind of with my girlfriend LJ, like she often accuses me of being like a movie snob.
Yeah.
A lot of the time because like she likes the rom-coms and there's nothing wrong with those films or movies and all that. But like,
for sure.
I'm just I like to be very cognizant.
Yeah, I mean like
of what's being put in here. Like what and we only have so much time. There's so much good production out in the world. Like I just want to.
Yeah, that's true too.
I just want to
some of those rom-coms like I watched one for I don't know. I was when I was out in Massachusetts, I went to one randomly by myself,
Yeah.
Because I was like trying to write this romantic scene, and I was like, okay, like how do I get a feel for this,
Yeah.
For the writing aspect, and
sure.
I went and seen it, and I was like, man, I feel like the guy would never say any of these things that they're having him say.
Yeah.
But like I'm in this theater in Rhode Island, and I'm just surrounded by these teenage girls who are just swooning, over this, and it's just like I feel really out of place. Yeah, but I was like, this isn't reality. None of this is reality. You know?
Yeah. But it's interesting, like how it can really hit the mark with some demographics of people.
True. You're telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what, like, in the writer's eyes, it's like, oh, well, this would be the perfect way that this would happen, And it's like, okay, well, I mean, it doesn't have to be reality either, for it to be art, like it could be surreal. It could be anything, really.
Yeah.
And so in that way, it just depends on what you want it to be. I know I read a romance novel of Shannon's because I was just like, I know this person, this is hilarious to me,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like I want to be able to have input on these characters, though, like I'm like, what? Just for the realistic, and that would be just something that I have to do myself, probably. Where like I have to like pick up specific types of traits or characteristics or idiosyncratic methods of how like this author is portraying these characters, and it's like if I want a character like that, then I have to like mirror certain aspects like that,
Yeah.
And then bring it to what I'm doing.
Right.
And then go.
Yeah. And we can, like, I think at our base level we all try to be as like empathetic and like understanding of like other people's conditions and like the way they were brought up, and stuff like that. But it's still, it's much like the, coming back to living, with my niece and like having her in a physical environment versus FaceTime. Like, if you're trying to live through someone's shoes, no matter how hard you try, there's still going to be some miss.
Yeah.
And like the understanding of that person's experience in its entirety. Like, it's just, there's no way around it.
Yeah, so, and that's where the artistic license, and that's where like you can fudge. You can like kind of like fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
Or if you have like a good editor or someone else who like sees you, and be like, okay, I know you really like this character. But you gotta kill him. He can't be in the story. This is not the focus. Kill your darlings.
Yeah.
You like this, but that's a whole different story.
Right. Yeah.
Write that later.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. There was an instance. Speaking of killing our darlings and stuff, I had a commercial shoot the other week. It was for this $1 million client, and we spent, I don't know how many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It was this mantle. We had like a props master. We built it up just perfectly, lighting everything. All this energy and time went into essentially what was 2 to 3 seconds in the final cut.
Okay. Yeah.
But the guy I was working with at the time, he was editing it, and he actually like omitted that to a certain extent.
Okay.
He's like, well, the story, the narrative.
Yeah.
That's king. Story is king. And I agree with that sentiment at times, but like given the relationships of the client dollars and everything else, I knew it's like we put all of this into like that, so if we can squeeze in, that 2 to 3 seconds at the beginning, like kind of I don't know. That's more of like saving the darling in a way, but like at the same time, like there's just so many things to think about and variables behind the curtain. That informs
definitely.
and biases and all of that. So like, what is the right choice at the end of the day? It's just like
it's completely subjective. And it's there's really, I mean, you can look to other people and other people's work in the past, but it's like completely wide open. You know, there's completely just no rules at all. You know. And and you have the ability to just invent shit on the fly. And it's like that doesn't make it easier. But in ways, it does take I don't know. It depends on how you approach it. You know.
Within the commercial world, it's very, like, it's more, I think, science and art sometimes. You know, and like trying to like get the budgets and like figuring out if we can hire talent, can't hire, like getting the clients. You know, because they have their own subjective expectations that maybe. You know, we try our best to get that as translucent and like understanding as possible. But sometimes, you know, like you get to the final cut and you give it to them, like, wasn't expecting it from this and this angle. You know, like, you know, just little like things like that we try to cover and like, you know, try to take care of. But yeah, art's subjective and it's just like it's a wily beast sometimes. And I think having commercial, like working commercial world, like, I think it allows more room to welcome fear and like the failure side of things because it's like other people's dollars rather than and like, you know, feel free to talk on your perspective of art and fear because like that's totally two different takes. Like you don't have the corporate branding and like all of that around you. You kind of have that freedom. You know, so do you still have the fear? Like, is it still like is it someone that you've made friends with and dance with freely, like within the process?
Well, as far as like songwriting is concerned, I just do that automatically anymore. You know, like I've just been doing that for so long where like that's almost how I process certain parts of my life now. Like that's like almost like my go-to method. You know, or like I'll write stuff in a notebook a lot. But a lot of times even that I'll just get into modes where I'll like it'll start turning into like lyrics, you know? Instead of like journal falls like seamlessly into prose, like and back and forth a lot of times in my notebook.
So that blank white page, it doesn't necessarily intimidate you maybe as it did when you started, or is it still
it's very much like a Mobius approach. Like Gene Gerard, the artist, the comic artist. He has this method of drawing where, like, if he's not working on a project, he's just keeping his hand on the page and just making shapes,
making squiggles.
And that was like kind of like his methodology.
Sometimes that takes you on a path.
Exactly. And it keeps you sharp. It keeps your chops up. You know, like. And in that method, like that's what I feel like I'm doing. I try to read a lot, and I try to like listen to words a lot. And when I'm writing, I'll notice things that work. You know, I'm like, oh, how do I really want to say this though? You know, and like I'll stop myself from saying it simple sometime and just kind of like go off on tangents just because just elaboration and whatever. You know, and sometimes it's just. Like a couple of the songs just kind of just came out. I don't know. Life. If life is your subject matter, you never run out of material, right? Like that's just really as
Boys
long as
South
you.
Park can attest to that, you know.
Right.
Like,
That's true. That's true.
They always like are on the pop culture, you know. Sort of side of things. So it's always like there's always stuff coming in. So there's always stuff they have no problem having out.
It's just, it's completely like wide open and like as long as you like, and that's the other thing we were talking about earlier is like if you're collaborating with somebody, it's like are you on their path or are you on their like vice versa like because. Where is the vision and where is the direction coming from and where is it going? Because usually that's a straight line. And if you can just like use that as a reference point, then you have direction and it's automatically ingrained in the thing. A lot of times I'll stick to...
you feel like the compass and like the direction, the path, it's all set by having an individual like as like the orchestrator, or like as being like the lead of the collaboration?
Well, it's the spark, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the reason, or it's the initiation of it, you know? Like a lot of times if I find, like in songwriting in general, like I'm doing all of the orchestration of all the instruments myself, right?
Yeah.
Like I will definitely, like whatever the first idea, the first mover is on the thing, you know, I'll generally stay really close to that. And then everything else around it can change and accent that.
Okay.
But like a lot of times it's lyrics, and a lot of times the first thing that I write and like I'm like, oh, this is a thing. It's usually like sometimes I'll try to go and rewrite it and be like, okay, this is kind of dumb. It could be like this, it could be all these things. And then like I do like 3 versions of it and then go back to the original one. I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. Okay. Because that's what it is. Yeah. You know, like I try, like if you try to make it what it's not, then it's not going to be that thing anymore. Right. You know? Yeah. To be really bland or I don't know, just broad about it, you know? Like,
but is it sometimes good to like take that leap and that departure, like even if
you know, because like you figure other things out,
getting off
the
dock, you know, sort of thing, like what the initial expectations and
because you'll accidentally you'll hit on other things that like you're like, oh well, that actually worked better with the original idea. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is what the original idea was, you know, and this is what makes it exciting, you know. Yeah. It's all that and the formulation and exactly, you're right, the tangents, you know. Yeah. Like where you're able to, like, if you have time to put into something, you know, and just like explore it for its own right, or take the tangents off of it that it's taking you. Right. You know, like then you'll know more about the thing when you come back, you know. And you can just I mean, you can work on something forever, you know. Well,
that was my I'm glad you brought that up, because my next question in my head is like, when is a project, when is done? Yeah. You know, like when do you mark it? Like, all right, because like I've been in a place and I've kind of been raised on fundamentals of like these ideas and concepts of perfection, you know, like whatever that means. Yeah. And so, you know, you could shine and like polish something for forever. Yeah. Yeah. But like, where do you know, where's that line then? Like setting hard deadlines, like in my world is that. Yeah. With commercials, like, you know, you have this and this time to get to them. They want to be on air yesterday. Exactly. So like, it's kind of the force, you know, there. But like for you, like where does...
Like a market force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that. Yeah, I have to make up deadlines for myself because generally speaking, if I'm working with something too long, it gets stale too. Yeah. And so
kind of like when you're tired of it? Like, is that the finish?
Maybe. Yeah. Because, like, if I get tired of something and I keep working on it, it's just not going to be fun for me to do.
Yeah. But, like, when do you, like, just set it aside and come back to it later versus, like...
Yeah,
publish.
Well, and that's why I always have 100,000 projects happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's like, as soon as I get bored on something, then I'm like, okay, I'm just set it down and just move something else, and then I'll be back, you know? Yeah. And that always happens, and if I don't come back, then it's done as it's going to be.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
But if I really like that project, then I really know that it's worth something. Or like if I wake up in the morning and that song's in my head, I'm like, yep, I'm going to work on that song because it needs it. And I know exactly what it needs too, you know, and then you just do it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And that's the way this last album, like I've been really like, man, this last album's been a lot of fun, you know?
Good.
Because I've been like, really working up to this point for a long time. Just like learning how to play drums the last few years and like learning everything I can about synthesizers and like what bass lines I like and what works and what drum like when you're building like a band or like a project like that, you're like the drums and bass are what it is, you know. And then as long as you have that, then you can just throw whatever kind of like tricks on top of it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so, but I used to write everything from that top down, where like I'd write everything from guitar, vocals, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, put whatever you need to it, you know.
So you fit the drums and the bass like around that. Yeah. Like the vocal.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. But
is that typically the way most musicians go about it, or is it the drum bass side first in your experience as an observer? Or
yeah, it probably is guitar and vocals first. You know, like that usually is the first mover.
Okay.
But if you're the same guy that's doing the bass and drums, you know, then you look at it completely different again. Because you're like, well, as a drummer, how do I see this, you know, at that point? Yeah. Good drummers do that, though, you know. Like, I used to work with some good drummers in some old bands that would be like, it sounded like they wrote it when after I came to them. And then, like, it just, like, the drum part was so good that it just sounded like I just made up guitar parts to go with that drum. Yeah. And so that partnership worked really good for a little while between me and him. Adam Bursley, best drummer, one of the best drummers I ever worked with.
It's already, like, unfathomable of, like, how one can play an instrument well from my perspective. Yeah. But, like, I see people like Anderson .Paak. Do you know his stuff at all? Like, he drums and sings at the same time. I know. Like, how do you have the brain for that? Like, how does a human, like... I feel like you gotta be, like, kind of android, you know? Like, and to be able to pull that off. Like, that's just so much.
What's really cool about singing and playing an instrument at the same time, though, right, is that they affect each other, you know? If you're doing that, like, your accents as a vocalist will accent your drums and back and forth, you know, or guitar or whatever instrument you're playing, you know. Yeah. And so there's that kind of like looseness about it. You're not on time anymore, you know. Generally speaking, a lot of times I will be singing while I'm playing an instrument. So it always has that kind of like looseness, and it's like, it's not on the time of the song, it's on the time of my lyrics, you know? And how I imagine that. And I've been in some bands recently where the guys commented that, they're like, this isn't what the song is, it's what you're doing, and we're going along with you. I'm like, okay, cool, like that.
So it isn't like as structured as like you know, you could pull out like a metronome.
It's exactly like, structured based off of what I'm doing.
Touché.
Right. Whereas, but if you put it on a metronome, it's never gonna work. You know, it just doesn't work that way with me a lot of times. Right. And in that way, I think it has life. It has like breath. You know. I don't know. I could talk about that for a long time. I like that whole world of music, and even like, man, like I was gonna say earlier when you were talking about music has this magic to it. I was like, well, the magic's kind of gone for me because it's like I know all the structures and all that, but it's still like I put it in my headphones last night and took a mile walk and listened to Sam Sham and the Pharaohs, you know, 1965, their second album, and it's all this like you know, the 60s, like real 60s, like organs and brass hits and the bass lines that are just like hitting like ridiculous, like I'm like, oh yeah, like the way that they're, I don't know, just the entire package is just like so real and so like authentic to me, you know, because it's exactly what was happening. Like I know where they were coming from. I know what hadn't hit yet. You know.
Like I can so relate to that on the film side. Because like it's hard for me to really like be in the story and like present sometimes because I'm like doing the homework of like, oh, how'd they light that? You know, like they have a soft bank like at the 45. Like what is happening here? And then like the camera work. And then I'm looking at production design and like how the colors flow to their wardrobe. You know, like just so many different variables there, and it kind of pulls me out of it, and I feel like my like. You know, the frequency in which you find a piece that really is like, oh, dang, like, this is really good, you know? Like, it becomes few and further between because you've seen some peaks and valleys before that, and it really, like, sets the boundaries, you know? Like, you see certain films, and it's, like, moved me a certain way, and it's just, like, you hit that, and then it's, like, I don't know, kind of like any kind of substance that you use from time to time, like, the effects kind of...
Well, you forget what it is. Over time. Or your tolerance.
Diminished returns.
Your tolerance lowers too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's weird how like art completely has that about it too. Like even if like my Instagram is completely like artist, you know, like just art. And like I'm flipping through, I'm like, whoa, that's amazing, and then I'm like 5 in, I'm like, this is derivative, this is dumb, I've seen this, I saw this a second ago. you know, or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah, and the whole introduction of technology and social media and like how much is thrown here.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of frequency and noise, you know, like and things we've seen before, and to get to like that same dopamine high. Yeah. Like this is a unique piece that has moved me emotionally in some way. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's further and farther. It's like a smaller target and it's moving all the quicker.
It really is. Because there's not a lot of consensus anymore either. Like a lot of like large like it used to be everyone watched Jerry Seinfeld in the 90s or whatever. Yeah.
There's more control over larger entities of what you got here. Yeah,
so like they said they had the one-liners, everybody had the one-liners on their tongue the next morning or for the next month or for the next year sometimes, depending on how well it caught. Yeah. And that was like that was kind of like the society, that was kind of like how people communicated, you know? Or just what people are quoting at the time, you know? Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more democratic, like in the way, like, you know, sitting up this, you have your phone, you have a microphone, boom. Yeah, like, let's, you know, it's already light years above the quality of what it was. Yeah, like 20 years ago, you know, like.
It's up to us to make those calls. You know. Yeah. And we're making them real time, and just everyone's making them real time in life. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's it's very organic in that way. You know,
people's brains, I think, are much more manufactured now for like the creator's mindset too, because of the social media and all. Hey, special guest, Jasper, everyone. But so it's just it's a different world. I'm excited for the different world and the new world.
Like, I like it.
And especially like going back to like the Weinsteins and like all that social change interaction within the film industry. I feel like that meshed with the democratization, you know, within the medium. Like I just feel like we're going to get a lot more new flavors. Like we're going to have this newer renaissance. Yeah. And what creation could do, because you're seeing more women, you're seeing more diversity, you know. Yeah. Yeah. And we've been dealt with white man vanilla for so many years, you know,
like accessible. Yeah. The tools are here now. Yeah. And it's now we just have to completely reform society so everyone has time. You know, I think that's the biggest barrier to entry is time now. You know. Yeah. And I mean,
it's been even more of a commodity than it was. It already was the largest commodity that, you know, that we have in life. But
exactly.
It's everyone's prying for it. Yeah. A lot more these days.
Yeah. And it's not. And then it becomes a thing where like, well, if everybody's doing it, what's fame? And is fame even important? What's important about it? Yeah. Well, the important thing is that like in my life, I'm able to express this thing. You know, it doesn't matter if 5 people hear it or if 10,000 people hear it. Right. It's that I was able to evolve as a human being. You know, and I found a certain amount of happiness and joy and satisfaction in that process. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and
it's never been a doubt. I feel like you've been doing art for all the right reasons. You know, like it hasn't. I'm trying to get on a cereal box. You know,
right? Yeah. It's like, well, should I take out an Instagram ad on this? I'd rather people not see this.
Sometimes,
but if people want to see it, they'll find me or whatever. You know, or like I like the whole organic nature of it because it also affords me a lot of different avenues that I wouldn't have. Like if you're famous, you can't just get on a train and meet random people and have an interview with them. Be like, hey, do you want to record this real quick? Yeah. I got a podcast. You don't know me, but this would be a lot of fun.
Buckle up. Yeah. And that's going into this too. This podcast. I've never been in the interview mode before. Okay. And I'm also just appreciative that you deem me worth interviewing, which is great.
Cheers. Cheers to that.
Yeah. But that all said, like, you know, I don't find myself on the other side of the lens too often. Okay. And I think it, you know, to most people, even including myself, it's a vulnerable mode, you know, and I can see why people like, you know, me like on street photography or, you know, like, no, don't get this, you know, because people have their insecurities. We all do.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just going, all that said, like with our conversations years ago, like it always flowed so well. Like it always felt very organic and natural, and not any square peg, round hole, or round peg, square.
And
so it's just
like any performance, there's a certain it puts you on the spot and it puts you in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's scary and also exciting, Yeah. And those two things light up the brain in exactly the same ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as long as you believe that it's exciting, then you can make the other person believe that too.
Sure.
Right?
No doubt.
So that's my feeling. That's my take on it. That's why I usually don't have reservations about it anymore, because I know that I can completely, not completely steamroll the other person into believing in themselves, right?
Right.
But that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I'm not talking to people though who don't have a lot of self-confidence, right?
Sure.
But I would like to.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk to everybody, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because,
everyone's got their story.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
nuggets. There's gold nuggets to be pulled out of any individual. If you know where to look.
Yeah. And generally speaking, those are the people that you want to talk to the most.
Yeah.
Who are completely out of the limelight, completely afraid to come on camera.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Otherwise, you just get the same spiel they gave the other guy.
Right.
And they have like a script.
Yeah. And it's like, right now, it's like, and those are the people who will jump in front of a camera too. At this time in history, like, people still think of like a TV show. It's like, oh, you're going to be famous here on a TV show.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, but that's not what it is anymore. It's like, we still have TV shows.
Yes.
But
it's called TikTok now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I watch a million TV shows in a row and just man, Chris Martin's been killing it. His last one where he's like, wait till the end of the video, and that's his song. He's like, wait till the end of the video.
That's the whole song. Yeah.
And like, he's just finding the cracks between, or like the. Like, what are we doing, Like, what are we really doing, and how hilarious is that,
Yeah. He's kind of mirroring it, like, putting up that mirror a little bit.
Yeah.
To, like, what is the pop cultural, Instagram, TikTok, what the trends are, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I appreciate his just, like, every day I'm just going to push out this 30-second piece.
I know.
And
it's ridiculous,
who cares, there's so much out there. People don't people that don't care, and the people that do, they'll latch on. I love that, like, that Skyfall, that just kind of jumping out of a plane every day. Man,
I have questions for that guy.
I feel like you guys are very, like, spiritual, like, artistic cousins, in a lot of ways. I see a lot of parallels.
We used to do those storyteller nights together. The Great Grant Beebe and Dr. Fub's story nights.
Oh, yeah?
Storyteller shows that we did for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Up at the art gallery in the Dragonfly days.
I do remember that now. It's coming back to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the year that I wrote Cookie Time album. And that album, was like, half of it was like completely storyteller and half of it was piano songs,
Yeah.
I was just trying to go for something completely different at that point.
Yeah. That's the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. That album turned out pretty decent too. Like, I always had reservations about the piano side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I had reservations about the whole thing, and I didn't make physical copies till like a year or two later, because I was just like okay with it at that point.
Sure.
With myself.
Yeah.
But there's no time limits on any of this stuff either. So it's like, in that respect. But there's some wild shit on that album though, man. Like, it catches me off guard too. I collaborated with Isfan. He did a bunch of modular synth on the storyteller side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just turned into this weird character-driven acting, like, snowball of, like, I just had 15 notebooks open on the stage,
Oh, dang, yeah.
at the old fire round. Noah is behind the mixer board. Isfan's over here, and I'm on the microphone just directing everybody, It's just like, all right, we have a half an hour to make an album. Let's do it,
Yeah.
And that's basically, we went and just knocked it out,
That's cool. I love
wild.
that. Yeah. Because I mean, again, like even if the end product turns out maybe not to your expectations, or like gets the acclaim that maybe some people are looking for, you still have that experience together.
Right. That's true too. That's true too.
Yeah.
But it turned out really good in this case. You
know,
that's
like, all the icing on the cake. Yeah.
One shot, never practiced them before.
Yeah.
Well, some of them I used to do at the storyteller nights. And some of them were based off of like an Isaac Asimov concept or something, you know, sometimes, or, you know, I don't know, you pull from different spots in different ways, and just obviously from life a lot in direct ways. I don't know, I'm just going through that album in my mind right now, that's all. Yeah. It's just like one story where like I just completely tangent and start like, well, I was on this beach and me and this girl fell asleep on this beach, and like this crab, this microscopic crab apparently crawled into my ear, and then, you know, crawled up into the crannies and conundrums in my brain, and then turned off the inhibition section of my brain. Yeah. And then like in this, and then I switched to a whole nother notebook and just started like, I had all these lists of like short story ideas of plots, characters, and settings or whatever that I had listed on these pages. Yeah. And then I just started going through them and just saying them in like nonsensical ways. Yeah. And then great. Yeah. And then there was like technical like failure where like I got to the point where I was like a funeral festival, and then like Isfan hit a button and it went so like the whole thing, like it looked like it just sounded like it went to like static, you know? Yeah. And it was just like perfect timing, you know? Like, we're like, that's it. That's the thing.
Like divine intervention sort of thing. Just like, I love those moments. Some of the best moments.
Really are, man. Yeah. Like, even with Jasper knocking down the thing and we were talking about politics, I was like, yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah,
man.
right.
Like, let's just move on and talk about something real.
Yeah, right. Leave it to the cats. Yeah.
Yeah, just, I mean, we don't know what the stage is that we're even on top. Like, what is the platform? Wait, what is it even? You know, like, just generally speaking, like, and then it's completely up to us to decipher any way that we want to, you know? Yeah. People are like, oh, well, it's the stars and it's when you were born, or it's this book over here, or this I talk to this plant and play classical music, or, you know, it's like, okay, cool. You can do any of these things.
Agreed. You know? Yeah, there's freedom in all of it, and I think it's great that we all have our own perceptions of how the world works, and, you know, figure things out. But, I mean, within at least this world that within society and all that, like, there is some power in congruency. Yeah. And, like, having people after a similar... You know, that communal, like, push. Yeah. So to speak. But
how much control do we have? You know, like, it's the way that the world, like, we sometimes blame people for different decisions and things that they made at different times. And it's like, oh, it's destroying the world, climate change. And it's like, I get that, but also, like, what choice do they have? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, like, the way that, like, we decided to go down this path, everything was just kind of inevitable, you know, in a lot of ways. Yeah. If it wasn't them that made that choice, they would have just been killed and someone else would have made that choice. Yeah. Or something, right? Yeah. And it's like, when you look at it in those terms, it's calming and also just frustrating. Yeah. And
I mean, like, if we're going from like a nihilistic point of view, right? Like, there's a beginning and there's an end. You know, like
completely fatalistic with this. Like, what choice do we really have? I don't know, I was gonna go down this path inevitably at some point. You know, like I needed to learn this. I had no idea what I was doing.
You could set up games and hoops. You know, all from those 2 points. Yeah. You know,
I found this. Really interesting analogy recently where the guy's talking about like three dimensions versus fourth dimensions and things like that, what time is, and how it's like this apple knows that it's an apple, but it like knows itself and slices all the way across, and it says, oh, there's a lot of skin, I'm a lot of skin, oh, I'm a lot more fruit, oh dang, I have like a leaf. Yeah. I was like, I got seeds? This is momentous
this is too much.
event right now. And then like, oh, well, I don't have a seeds anymore. I'm just fruit. I'm a lot of fruit.
I
now
can
I'm
make
just
more of
skin
me
again.
from what's in me, like with the seed thing. Like,
Yeah.
You know, it can birth many more of
Yeah.
apple. Yeah.
So that's like the reproduction is like, oh well, that's a realization there, you know.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing over time about ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We start at one side and we're just one thing that goes through ourselves.
Yeah.
But we're just like, if there wasn't time, if time didn't exist, you know.
Yeah.
We would just be one solid like progression of a thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty like I don't know, existential way to look at things. Don't hit that button, man. The kitty cat's trying to play my laptop computer here.
Well, I wanted him to do some.
Oh dang, you did hit the button.
Did he really?
Yeah. I hope that wasn't recent. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Okay, no more buttons, man.
But yeah, in the if we're going to the perception talks too, there was like this. We went to summer camp a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's a leadership camp.
Okay.
And like one of the first days of the first weeks, you know, they talk about like if you're to like imagine like a 4-pane window.
Okay.
And, like 4 different quadrants. Like there's what we know of ourselves, and then the others know of us. Like there's shared knowledge of us.
Okay.
Of the individual.
Yeah.
And then there's like what we know of ourselves that others don't know. You know, there's what we keep in, like the secrets and things like that. And then you have what other people know about you that you're not aware of.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And then there's like that fourth quadrant of like what none of us know.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Ourselves or others don't know of us.
Yeah, but we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so many different...
And that's that popular meme, right? Like, it's like, this is how I see myself, this is how others see myself.
My mom sees me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It very much is all of those things, you know?
Yeah.
That's an interesting... I mean, like the meme itself as a medium has, like, kind of become introspective in a lot of ways, where we've never had like such tangible like you used to have like Gary Larson did Far Side, the little like one pane comics, you know, back in like the 80s and 90s or whenever he did that. Yeah. And I mean, I always loved those. I was always like really drawn to those things. He was, I mean, he had great, just I don't know, instinct about like, you know, like I just remember like the school for the gifted, and like the kids, like the nerds with glasses, he's like pushing on the pull door or whatever. Yeah. It's like, okay, great, right. Perfect, you know, like yeah. How smart are we really, you know? Not
very.
Not really, no.
I don't think, I mean, I think like, say we make it as a human species, you know, like 500 years from now, they're gonna be laughing at us. They'd be like, you did this and that. Like,
I mean, we laugh at Neanderthals now.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were probably a lot smarter than us in a lot of ways. You know? Yeah. And they had better sense of smell. Yeah. Not that we, you know, put a lot of like weight on that now. No.
That's I think our weakened sense. It's like
we used to though. I mean, that used to be a big deal. Yeah. I've heard that like before groups of Neanderthals or early hominid, you know, primates used to go to like war with each other. They could like smell each other in the group before they went to war and all know that they were ready to go to war. Okay. Yeah, it was like an entire like kind of like what we would call telepathy, but it was just a sense that they had more of. I heard that a lot of that part of our brain that we used to use
a lot of like testosterone, or like just like smelling like
probably
stemming from that. Like,
Okay. I mean, whatever pheromones maybe, right? Like, I don't know how our bodies work or how like how animals function on those levels, you know. Just like without words. I mean, there was like a long, like millions of years, humanoid creatures existed without words at all. You know, so how did we do that? You know,
communicate on a level.
On different. I mean, all other animals don't communicate with words at all. You know, and that limits them in ways. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of our brain has been taken over by words and mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to like, our brains aren't any bigger. Like our brains are smaller than Neanderthals were.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
I didn't know
like,
that.
what's our capacity for?
Yeah. We really improve. Is this improvement? Like
it's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's probably a lot worse when you look at it from an ecological standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more interesting maybe, but it's also like, well, how do we sustain this? And like we were saying earlier with energy and matter, it's like, well, it's probably a lot easier. It's probably like right on the tip of our tongue, you know, on an innovation basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're probably like right there. We're probably almost there. We don't even know it, you know?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, fusion is going to be the thing, or like solar or any of these things. It's like, yeah, maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's probably something we don't know, or that we already know that we never looked at, though, you know?
In that certain light or angle
lens.
or way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what the next monolith's going to be like in there. Like, I feel like
2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I feel like the internet was that. You know.
Yeah.
Like in such a huge way.
Yeah,
like,
because it's like the printing press.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overthrew religions. You know.
Yeah.
Basically, like entire ways of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can't tell us what's in the Bible. We can read it now. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, now it's like on a massive scale on everything, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I'm constantly just listening and learning and perspectives and like, because whether it's true or not, somebody's thinking it. And if somebody's thinking it, whether their intentions are nefarious or whether like they're actually trying to do good, if you listen to enough of it, you can kind of see through it and see what people's intentions really are.
The makeup.
Yeah. Words become superfluous after a while.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what's this guy really saying and why is he saying it? You know what I mean?
Right.
And is that matching up with my experience of the world?
Right.
Like I watched this whole
measuring stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if I believed everything this guy says, then it's like, yeah, like that would put me in an entire different frame of mind. But he said this, and I know that's completely not true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there was a guy talking about TikTok and the Chinese government, and it's like a super spyware and all this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I get that, and like maybe more or less than what Facebook's already doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that he spun it was like, oh well, like, you know, like your feed like feeds you all these things that you like, and they purposely feed Americans this like mind rotting, you know, stuff, and really like on my feed it's nothing like that, you know. It's like completely just like historical facts, and like I learned what the
it definitely leans into your search preferences and the content that you enjoy.
Yes.
And then just kind of mirrors it back at you.
And I'm an American, and it's not trying to rot my brain.
Yeah.
Because I would would I know? But at the same time, I'm learning from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is that real or not?
I still feel like there is a freedom of choice, you know, when it comes to those things. Like, sure, they're playing into the hand of, like, our brain chemistry.
Yeah.
And, like, what draws us in, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, playing the receptors to a certain degree. But we have our choice. You can deactivate Facebook. You can... Yeah. You don't have to be on Instagram.
For sure.
You have these choices. Like, I feel like... You know, within my industry, it's more of a requirement, you know, than it is like, I mean, still have the choice, but again, like to be on top of mind and figuring out what's going on with the world, like I don't know, it's a tool.
Yeah, it is.
At the same time.
It is easy to get addicted to it, and it's easy to just kind of like automatically push buttons that like push buttons in your head, you know, essentially.
Yeah.
It's so weird that we were able to like do that, you know. Back about 20 years ago, I used to have these ideas where like we would have like little like almost like a wristwatch, like a Dick Tracy kind of video phone thing, right? Yeah. Where we're able to like actually directly link to our brain like wirelessly and just push up and down levels. you know, of like serotonin or
Feeling
dopamine
depressed.
or right, yeah,
like swoop. Yeah,
or you know, and then like you would have like emulations of different drugs and how they affect the brain, you know, where you'd be like, oh well, like I want to be stoned right now, so I'm just gonna set it on that setting, and it'll just happen because that way I can just wirelessly create that effect, you know.
Sure.
And that's a direct method, but we've basically invented like a completely indirect method to do a similar idea, you know?
Yeah, I'd be really weary of that kind of power.
Right.
Like, you know, setting like restrictions and regulations, because I feel like everyone would be like, serotonin, dopamine, like all the time. Why wouldn't I go otherwise? You know what I mean?
Well, and also, I mean, if as far as psychedelic drugs, what those teach us, you know, if you're going for that type of effect, you can only produce so much serotonin physically in your brain over a 24-hour period. Over a 48-hour period, it dies down to. I mean, you can keep increasing it forever,
but it's not.
But it's the tolerance is just going to go up so high so quick that like you're just going to level off and just like it's not even happening. You know?
Right.
So you know, there's those types of like. Almost like it's like a dead man switch or like a barrier that's already in place in your brain or something, you know? That's super weird. I never really thought about it that way. But yeah, but like I don't know if like to emulate harder drugs and things like that, what that would do. I mean, obviously, it would be safer than taking street drugs. I mean. Like, let's see positive, negative here. If it's already in my brain, it's not going to kill me because it's already there, you know?
Right. And there's already what talks about the Neuralink.
Yeah.
And everything else, like, of kind of utilizing that, like, technology and computing.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. You know?
Yeah. Very like, matrixy.
I always think about the experiment, and I talk about this on the show a lot, where, like, there was an experiment about 7, 8 years ago, maybe longer now, where they connected 3 rhesus monkeys' brains together, and they were more intelligent at the experimental pattern projects they had them do. They were smarter together than they were separate. Okay, and if you can do that, obviously you can do that with monkeys. You can do it with humans. You know,
right.
And so, but if you have a neural link, how many people's brains could you link together? And if everyone thought as one consciousness, like if you have 1 million people all thinking together as one, what type of consciousness does that become? And what kinds of like questions and
who's
answers?
Who's pulling the strings on the? Who's at the wheel? You know?
Right. Yeah. Like I mean, I always theorize that like we're all just one consciousness in a way, right? We're like maybe we're all essentially the same person, but like in different bodies with different experiences causes us to have different reactions and different personalities based off of those experiences.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing, kind of thing. You know, all the way around, everybody. Right. Yeah. And if it's possible to happen, then it's going to happen because someone's going to do it, right? And someone's, like one of us. Yeah. If I'm thinking about it, I know that somebody else is probably doing it already, you know. And that's a weird feeling, I think, you know, in a way, you know. But to actually have that be an experience, to where we're actually all one consciousness, because then we're not communicating in words anymore, you know.
Right.
And words are limiting in the fact that like we tag certain, like if we're trying to talk about city planning or economics, there are hot button words that I can use that will make you hate me with just me mentioning the word, and if you don't even know what the word means, then that conversation can't even move forward.
Well, say, I mean, as an example to that point, like it's like having a comment, you know, via text or like a written down thing and reading the tone off of that. Like, there's a million ways to interpret that. Like, you might have been sarcastic when, you know, you posted it and they're just not picking up on that and now their feelings are hurt, you know. Or what have you.
It's like, hey, man, this is the first 15, 20 years we've had text messages. Like, we're all new to this game, you know?
New to the party.
I don't have a parent who did this before.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I didn't
frontier.
grow, like, the way that I grew up talking was based off of them actually speaking to me.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's the way we do. I mean, that's the way we learned.
Mm-hmm.
It's super not intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever have offspring of my own. We'll see, TBD. But just navigating the parental world within that screen time, like when you get the screen, like how much, how little.
Yes.
That's all being built in real time. Like just the limitations and
because they have to have some experience with it.
You don't want to deprive them of because that just like sets them back.
Yeah, exactly.
In life.
Exactly.
Like,
and there is a lot of capability to learn a lot more things that way than in like normal experience.
Yeah.
In ways, you know, it just depends on how. That's a really hard question right now. Some people are limiting their kids completely from the internet until they're 18.
Yeah,
and
I feel like that's pendulum too far.
And it's like, wow, dude, really? Like, and then you're just gonna throw them into the world after that?
Yeah,
huh?
like good luck. It's like the newest version of like wolf children, you know, like
just our Amish people.
Yeah, I don't
You're
know.
on Romspring right now, dude.
We're just see though the next 10, 20, you know, with that, all those parental styles and like what that means for the
because the kids now are coming from a completely different world than we came from, entirely.
No doubt. Yeah.
You know, I mean, even like from every 5 years back in like if I was born in '83 and you're born in like '88, like we're different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
But now, if you're born in like 2005 and someone else is born in 2010,
right?
It's like, that's completely different. That's like decades away.
Yes. To be inundated with all this from like day one, it's interesting because we have that interesting perspective too where we lived in a generation that have memories on both sides.
Yeah.
Of like dialogue came in, and like before that we were like outside in the woods, like you know it just seemed it's different.
I thought I was super hacker man by using the tracker knob on my VHS player. You know, like, and like my grandma was like, "What are you even doing?"
Right?
Like, oh, you just changed the tracking.
Yeah.
Are you gonna break it? What are you like? What's the tape?
Yeah.
What is it's a computer, right?
Yeah.
It's like
through like the dial-up stages to
exactly. And then like I remember like 1995, I have clear memories of like not knowing what the internet was.
Yeah.
But I knew that it came in the mail on a disc that said AOL.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, the internet's here, but it's not here, and also
like how does this apply to my day to day? How is this?
Yeah, it's like completely everyone was catching up and everyone's just like, what is this internet thing? And I remember
pick up a song for it took hours, and to the fact that it wasn't riddled with like malware, like viruses is like a whole another thing. Like it was that time period. It was like school projects here and there, like it was like Ask Jeeves.
And
pick it up, and now it's just like
I used to have an Encarta encyclopedia on a CD-ROM.
Yeah.
That, or like a science disc on a CD-ROM or something like that, and like that went away real quick. That was only here for like 10 years, maybe 15.
Yeah.
And then it was just gone.
Right.
You know, 15 years later, we have phones in our pocket. Yeah. But right. 8-track didn't last very long.
Yeah.
I mean, it moves pretty quick. Yeah. Now everyone's into the augmented realities, virtual realities.
VR, yeah.
I read an article in Wired yesterday that was interesting in like the overhyped aspect of the way that we've spun sci-fi for years. Is like, oh, well, we're going to end up, like, it's inevitable that we're going to end up in this, like, virtual reality space, right? But every time that we try to get there, nothing ever pans out,
No, it feels like the technology's just, like, it's not quite there. We keep taking hard swings.
Yeah, like, billions and billions of dollars are throwing into this, and it doesn't seem like it's going, it's like, there's no traction there. It's like spinning wheels, Yeah. And the guy's like, well, maybe it's, like, just a novelty. Maybe it's just like a 3D movie where like we're like, oh yeah, like this is like we're gonna go to a 3D movie, but generally speaking, I don't, because it's like not necessary.
Yeah.
The regular internet's just as useful
at this
to
point.
me.
Yeah, for the day-to-day use.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's amazing now too, like from like a musician's perspective, I'm sure, like having like that access and stream, like immediately you get the song from all through time.
Yeah.
Like of recorded media.
For sure.
Whereas like before it was just kind of what your mom and dad had on vinyl, or like you go to the record store.
And it's too big for anyone. Like so many people just click on playlists now. Or they'll just have, like, if you're tired at the end of the day, like, oh, I need rain sounds, and weird ambient synthesizers behind it or whatever, you know, and that's what I'm going to listen to.
Yeah.
And that's new popular music.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting the way that it's just splintering like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, to become a musician now, I mean, you're basically a historian, Yeah. Like, to even know what to look for, Like, just off the top of your head, like, I have stacks and stacks of albums, that I can reference in my house, that I do reference in order to, like, jog my brain enough to be like, oh, you know what that reminds me of that I do want to listen to, Or even last night, the only reason I got to Sam Sham and the Pharaohs last night is because someone posted about Wooly Bully, the song, and I'm like, oh, I know who did that. That's a great song. That's like, we used to cover that. And, like, so then I was like, man, I want to listen to those guys right now on my mile-long walk. And I found this obscure 1965 album where none of the hits were on it. And it's all just talking about voodoo, medicine man, and love Love Potion number 9. And I'm like, fuck, yeah, that's cool. You know? It was a great album. And, like, it was funny because...
check that one out. But
anyway. But, like, just even know that band off the top of my head to look for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's because I've just been doing it forever, you know? Looking through stacks or just, like who did that song, Like, we used to cover Little Red Riding Hood in a jug band back in college, Little Red Riding Hood, you sure are looking good. Like, that's an old Sam Sham song,
Okay.
And that, like... they're completely obscure except for those two songs, Same with kind of the Coasters. Like, I love the Coasters. I mean, they did Yakety Yak, Don't Talk Back.
Okay.
They did Charlie Brown, He's a Clown.
Yeah.
And then he did they came back in the light a little bit with Quentin Tarantino put Down in Mexico as that striptease song in one of those Death Proof, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm like, who did this song? That was the Coasters? Okay, I cover that song now, because it's the greatest ever.
Yeah.
But their whole catalog is ridiculous, and just like for that period, they're like the caviar.
Yeah.
I went to my Mind's Eye Records here in Lakewood and bought a big 2 CD disc set of the Coasters.
Sweet.
And the owner is obviously, he's just like, yeah, these guys. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Knows what's up. When you get the record store staff, eyes lighten up. You're on a good.
One time I was when they used to be at their old shop. I went in there and bought a vinyl of New Bomb Turks, okay? And they're from Columbus, like, they're pretty local, but they got they were on the soundtrack to SLC Punks back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that was, like, their big claim to fame or whatever.
Yeah.
And, but I always loved that album. They were, like, some of my friends loved them and covered them. And so I was buying that album, and, like, the owner, the same dude, he was just like, hey, Joe, like, check this album out. These guys suck. And I was like, man, I thought they were all right, But it was like, the drummer from that band was standing right there, and he's just like, he's like, yeah, man, like, I hate those guys. And then, like, they explained, and I'm like, oh, cool, man. Hey, what's up? Fuck yeah.
That's wild.
It was the New Bomb Turks, man. I was tripping out on mushrooms once listening. But man, like, I used to cover some of those songs too. There's some really good ones on that album. real like kind of anarchist punk. What is that? Man, I used to be able to do it right off the top of my head. I'm an artist. I'm a worker. You're a worker. Would you like to be a worker too? You know. Or once I had a friend. He said he was an artist, more than the average schmuck. He said he'd been given a real gift. I said that was just dumb luck. Always love. I mean, it just brings it down to a level, you know. Where you're like, oh, well, I can do that then.
Yeah.
Art isn't talent. It's just working on a thing, really.
Yeah.
And putting yourself into it at that point.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talented in a lot of ways at all, you know. But I become talented because I just do it all the time, you know.
Yeah.
When I first started playing guitar, people hated hearing me play guitar because I would just be like, oh, but you hear the interval between these two notes, though? That's weird. I don't know what that is, but I like it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And that just became, I mean, part of that experimentation was just kind of, you know, it comes with you, you know? Time.
Yeah, just building on that.
Yeah.
Snowballing.
Yeah, and then you learn real things about music or whatever, you know? And then you completely reject them, but you're like, but to have a bass player, I do need to know what key I'm in.
Know the rules so you can break them.
Yeah. So I took that rule. I'm like, okay, just know E. That's all you need to know. All right, here we go.
And a 1 and a 2. Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of it's just like notes that I thought fit. So whatever. I don't know what these scales are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it exhausts my all the things that I felt like I needed to say or wanted to say or things we arrived to.
Yeah.
Is there any way you wrap these up?
Yeah, just like this, man.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if there's like a last like closing.
Sometimes we run out of tape and things. Yeah. I need to find like a good tagline or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like what it was I quoted Mark Twain earlier today. If politicians and baby diapers need to be changed often. And for the same reason.
It's really rich. I love that. Yeah.
Yep.
Very good, man.
That's You want to leave it there then?
I think it's great. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
And setting up and doing
this.
Thanks
for doing it and getting hold of me and
been hankering for a good BB
right on
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've done this podcast too, man. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah.
Denver this weekend. Man, I'm excited.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good trip.
Hell yeah. And out.